I know you are.
You're doing better than I am.
Well, welcome everyone. My name is Brittany Cooper. I'm Executive Director of Nebraskans for Peace, and we thank you for coming out. It's super hot. Sorry about that. We'd like to just take a quick moment and acknowledge that the land we're gathered on was originally home to the indigenous peoples of this region. We honor and recognize that this land was stolen from the original inhabitants of Turtle Island, and we commit ourselves to remembering this truth as we work for justice and peace. I want to also just announce that we have these yard signs. You may have seen them. You're coming in. If you'd like one, go see Susan, maybe, or me after I'm done with this. We can help you out. We'd appreciate you taking one. So you guys know, but we gather every year here to remember the lives lost 80 years ago at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We reaffirm each year our commitment to a future free of nuclear weapons. It can be a somber reflection, but we also want to find hope that together we can work to free our world of nuclear destruction. So we really thank you for being here this evening, and I just have a couple of thank yous that I want to offer before I forget. Obviously, to Michael Murphy, we can give him another round of applause. We also have the Unitarian Church who co-sponsored our event tonight, which we really appreciate. So folks that are members, thank you so much. And lastly, but certainly not least, we have Steve Larrick and Janine Koppel here who will pick up our lanterns at the end so that we leave the space like we found it. So thank you so much. If you're still making lanterns or want to make another lantern, feel free to do that as we speak. It's not going to hurt our feelings. We want a lot out there. So I'll introduce our speaker for the evening. Our featured speaker is Shiho Burke. She's a peace activist and entrepreneur committed to building a future free of nuclear weapons. She's the daughter of a Hiroshima survivor. She has dedicated her life to honoring the legacy of the Hibakushu, or atomic bomb survivors, and passing down their stories to future generations. At the age of 10, she co-starred in the film White Town, Hiroshima, a powerful portrayal of a family destroyed by the atomic bombing. This early experience taught her the importance of remembrance and storytelling. As a teenager, Shiho served as a peace ambassador, traveling across Europe to visit war-scarred sites such as Terezin concentration camp, Hitler's birthplace, and the Berlin Wall. She also met the descendants of Czech architect Jan Letzel, who designed the first atomic bomb dorm. These encounters taught her that pain transcends borders, and so does the power of healing. Today, Shiho is involved in several international initiatives, including the Silent Fallout Project, a global campaign and documentary that uncovers the hidden radioactive contamination caused by U.S. nuclear testing. She organizes screenings, forges partnerships, and amplifies the voices of survivors who were silenced for far too long. She often reminds her children that had their grandmother not miraculously survived just 1.1 kilometers from the epicenter, none of them would be here today. She believes that her mother's survival came with purpose, to forgive, to move forward, and to live with strength and faith. That mission continues through Shiho's own life's work. She continues to speak at various events each year, especially during the annual commemorations of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, sharing personal histories, raising awareness, and building bridges between communities affected by nuclear injustice. In addition to her activism, she's a mother of 3 adult children, a real estate investor, and a freelance translator. Above all, she sees herself as a bridge, connecting memory to action and helping the next generation inherit a more peace and just world. Thank you, Shiho.
I would like to thank for Nebraskans for Peace for giving me this opportunity tonight. My name is Shiho Burke. and my maiden name is Kikuzaki, which means chrysanthemums in Japanese. I'm the only child of two survivors of the Hiroshima bombing, Toru and Mizuha Kikuzaki. Oh, I'm sorry. I should. Okay, sorry about that. At the time of the bombing, my mom was 11 years old, attending Hiroshima Tenma Elementary School. On August 6, 1945, my mother was where she was supposed to be, unfortunately, just 1.1 kilometers from the epicenter. My father was about 1.5 kilometers away from the blast, at home with a stomachache, which likely spared his life. Most people in the center of the city died in the initial explosion or within months or years from the radiation sickness. My mother was initially trapped under the burning remains. A miraculous shaft of light led her to climb out and escape from the debris that was once stood of her school. She sustained severe injuries to her arm and scalp. After her escape, she began to walk towards the designated bomb shelter the students were assigned to gather in case of an air raid. She was stopped by Japanese soldiers who told her she was walking toward the blast center. She then walked home. Her house was still standing, and her mom and dad were there. Her 13 and 15-year-old brothers were at the factory, forced to build plane parts instead of attending their later schools. One of her brothers was badly burnt. He has since passed, but I remember him from my childhood as a handsome man with the extensive scars covering his face. Her older brother, Kunihiro, took his own life after a long struggle with depression due to his father's demise, and much of his own mobility is taken away due to his extensive injuries. My mother's beloved father, a governmental official and prominent businessman, went out of his way to help others. This led to his second exposure to radioactive fallout, black rain. He died a few months later from the radiation sickness in October at the age of 38. Fortunately, my grandparents' two houses on their property withstood the blast. However, my grandmother had glass fragments embedded in her chest from shattered windows, which continued to surface through her skin year after year, which required the extensive reconstructive surgeries. Initially, my aunt showed no signs of injuries, but the long-term effects claimed her life at the age of 42 due to ovarian cancer. My uncle Joji also succumbed to liver cancer in his 40s, 6 months apart from his sister's demise. On the day of bombing, my mother began exhibiting symptoms of radiation sickness. This marked the beginning of her lifelong struggles with the physical effects of the bombing. Her condition progressively worsened until, at age 28, her doctor pronounced her terminal and gave her 3 months to live. But she refused to give up. Her will to live was stronger than diagnosis. She told herself, if I survive, I have to mean something. Years later, after enduring 4 miscarriages and 1 stillbirth, my mother became pregnant again, this time at the age of 40. Every doctor advised her to terminate the pregnancy. They said it was too begged my mother to end the pregnancy. Not out of cruelty, but out of love. She was terrified of losing her sister. And still, my mother held on. One doctor, someone who had gone to medical school with her stepbrother, was the only one who supported my mother differently. He told her, "You have the heart to raise this child, even if she's born with serious challenges." That was all my mother needed to hear. She decided to move forward, even if it meant risking her life. At 35 weeks, I was born premature, but alive. But my birth was only one part of my mom's story. She was a hibakusha, survivor of Hiroshima. And like so many women from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, she carried more than physical wounds. In post-war Japan, women like her were often seen as damaged. People questioned if they could ever bear healthy children. Many were discouraged from marrying. My grandmother, worried no one would accept my mother, tried to arrange a marriage between her and her stepbrother, who was a doctor. They weren't blood related, and in her eyes, this was the safest option. But my mother said no. She refused to define by fear and met my dad when she was in college and married him later. Years after bombing, she was diagnosed with leukopenia, a condition caused by her radiation exposure. Leukopenia is the medical term for an abnormally low white blood cell count. This condition made her body highly vulnerable to infections. Even a small cut could take days to heal. A cold could become life-threatening. Carrying a child with a severely weakened immune system put her life at constant risk. But she went on. She was determined to live, not only for herself, but for all the innocent lives that were lost. She needed to prove something, that survival is possible, that even in a world broken by war, you can still choose life. Then when there is will, you can beat the odds. And because of her, I'm here. And she also helped so many lives by becoming a hospital counselor throughout her life. Growing up in Hiroshima, my parents' first-hand experience of the atomic bombing profoundly influenced my life. Daily encounter with the people whose lives had been shattered by the bombing encouraged me to spread the message of peace. In 1984, Japanese director Yamada Tengo, known for Barefoot Gen, and the prominent director and screenwriter Shindo Kaneda, whose movie Postcard was an Oscar selection for Best Foreign Film, allowed me to star in their film, White Town, Hiroshima. This film told the story of the girl whose life was drastically altered by the single bomb dropped in Hiroshima. By the time I was 16, I was a member of the Crane Club, honoring Sadako Sasaki. Therefore, as a peace ambassador, I ended up with an opportunity to travel to Europe with the Hiroshima TV. Miss Hiroko Kajiyama, who passed away at the age of 16 from leukemia caused by atomic bomb disease, once said, "Only the painful industrial museum will always speak to the world about the horrors of the atomic bomb." Her words became the impetus for the preservation of the atomic bomb dome. Then the small movement, like a tiny flame, grew into a widespread effort. In 1967, the atomic bomb dome began its first preservation work. Inspired by Hiroko Kajiyama's wish that sparked the preservation of the atomic bomb dome, I embarked on a journey to trace the decisions made regarding the dome and explore the forgotten life of a young vessel who was the architect of the atomic bomb dome in Hiroshima for 6 weeks. This trip also included visits to Theresienstadt concentration camp, Hitler's hideout, Berlin Wall, Brandenburg Gate, and the architectural school in Vienna that Hitler almost attended, which could have altered his path and prevented him from becoming a dictator he was. The news of Fukushima meltdown spread like wildfire, raising concerns about leaving my 78-year-old mother in Japan had intensified. The exposure to excessive amount of radiation once was not enough. Now my mother was facing a fatal second exposure to dangerous levels of radiation. On March 27, 2011, 2 weeks after the 3/11 disaster, I boarded the plane to retrieve my mother from ground zero. It was surprising and distressing when the Japanese government not only concealed the truth about the accident's details, but also provided misleading information to their own people. Scientists understood the numbers and facts, but the public was largely kept in the dark. It angered me that the first nation to witness the silent suffering from radiation's after effects on the human body, and the first nation to witness the total destruction of human souls and minds resulted by radioactive contamination, which still resort to using radiation as an energy source because of the shortage. As a parent of 3 children, seeing mothers in Fukushima walking around with their radiation detectors to ensure their children's safety brought tears to my eyes. Health reports have already shown that the number of Fukushima children with thyroid cancer is reaching into the hundreds, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Throughout history, mankind has attempted to control and harness nuclear energy, but its failures have resulted in disasters from Fukushima to Chernobyl, Hiroshima to Nagasaki. Hiroshima and Nagasaki are not just events in history books. They are stark reminders of the devastating consequences of nuclear warfare. As a nuclear-armed nation and the country heavily reliant on nuclear power, we are placing the health and well-being of our people at significant risk. The dangers are more pressing than ever, and we need to urgently rethink our stance on the disarmament of nuclear weapons and the use of nuclear reactors. Knowing the unforeseen accidents and unfortunate tragedies we are likely to face in the future, we can't justify using nuclear energy or nuclear weapons. Even the long-term physical and mental damages we must endure, we have no choice but to seek alternative solutions for our energy needs and rethink the weapons of our choice. History often reduces tragedy to numbers, dates, and statistics. But behind every figure is a human life. A name, a face, a family. My mother was a young girl when the bomb fell. She wasn't a soldier or politician. She was just a student. She crawled out of the bubble of her school on August 6, 1945, not knowing if she would live to see another day. She believed it was her will alone that kept her alive. She never thought she'd live long enough to see me grow, get married, or have children of my own, but she did. And that is a miracle I will never take for granted. If she hadn't survived, I wouldn't be here, and neither would my children. That truth haunts me and grounds me every day. It reminds me that history is not abstract. It's personal. It's lived and carried through generations. That's why I speak. That's why I tell our story. Because when we tell personal stories, we move hearts, we awaken memories, and we resist forgetting. We ensure that the voices of survivors and of those who never got to speak continue to echo forward. This is my duty. It's not just my family's legacy. It's a warning, and it's a plea to never let it happen again. Thank you.